Good morning, everyone. It's your girls from Obscure Orations, and it feels like it's been forever since we've been here. So I think it was only last week that we missed, and that was
Yes.
due to my vacationing time out of country. So we decided to skip last week. But this week we are joined by the wonderful Miss Pepper Ann, and she is the author of the book The Notorious Texas Swindler. See, it's even in the title, Swindler.
Swindler.
And she's here today as our guest to speak about the book, which we've had little like conversation in email, and then a little bit before this. I'm sure you guys are going to love it as much as I'm already excited to hear about it. So I will let Miss Pepper Ann take it away and kind of introduce yourself and tell us about the story. And we will add in anytime that you hear like oohs and ahs is probably us participating as the studio audience.
Well, first off, I want to thank you both for extending an invitation for me to be here. I'm really excited to be included in your podcast. So thank you both for wanting to speak with me. Well, let's see. Let's see. So basically, I wrote a book about a family member that I didn't know existed, and he's a cousin. And what caught my interest, well, I was interested because it was a lot of information in the news back in 2001. He and four other inmates had escaped a local Grayson County jail in Texas. And it made the headlines. They were on the run for 4 days, and it all ended in a shootout. And law enforcement had got them. Yeah, and they were holding a married couple hostage in their home for 8 hours. And my cousin, the one who was, I guess you could say, the ringleader, he's the one that got them all to break him out of jail. He worked with the authorities and got the married couple out of their house safely. But what drew me to the story was what I had uncovered, which was a crime ring here in the state of Texas. Some individuals Bob, that's my cousin, he had gotten involved in cattle rustling, which is stealing farm animals and reselling them back in the 80s. And he did that with a individual in law enforcement, a DPS state trooper.
Is that what that means?
Uh-huh.
I had no idea.
Yeah, are you talking about cattle rustling, the term of cattle rustling?
Yeah, so all those Westerns my dad used to watch when I was a kid, I was like, what the hell is that?
What are they taking?
What are they rustling? So yeah, okay.
You wouldn't know, right? Unless you get in the middle of it. I know exactly what you mean.
How have you watched the TV series Yellowstone and not learned what cattle rustling?
I don't know.
Guys, I've never seen Yellowstone. I have never seen Yellowstone.
It is fantastic. And I mean, it taught me a lot of things about the whole ranching aspect, because like even when we got your email about your book, it's still one of those things that you don't think, well, obviously Dana doesn't think about cattle rustling at all, but you don't think of it happening in today's day and age. Like in my mind, and I know about several other people that I talked to about it, it's one of those things that you picture just being part of the Wild West and being a thing that happened back then. You don't think about it being something current. So to think of it like, it's that weird image in my mind of trying to think when you're like, oh yeah, and it was just back in 2001. I'm like, my brain's like, but no, cowboys.
When you said the date and what county they came from, I Googled it. So I have 3 news articles here in front of me. 5 escaped prisoners sought in Texas. 5 inmates, including alleged rustler, escaped from Texas jail. So yeah.
Well, I tell you what really made me want to write the story was what I uncovered, which was what happened in the 80s with Bob. He got involved with some individuals who paid his bonds when he got in trouble with the DPS state trooper, who actually coaxed him into stealing the cattle, And these individuals that paid his bonds would not let him go. They just would not let him go. And they once they came into the picture, he committed more heinous crimes than anything he'd ever done with the cattle rustling. And these other individuals have gotten away with their crimes, and they're still committing crimes today. And so that's why I did this, because I wanted to expose those individuals. Just happened to be what brought my attention to the story was finding out that he escaped from the Grayson County Jail. I had no idea. And cattle rustling. I didn't really want to write about cattle being stolen because, you know, I'm from Texas, right? And like you said, that's something you imagine happening back in the late 1800s or early,
Yes.
1900s. But but I wanted to expose these people. I wanted to expose them, and so that's why I wrote the story. I wanted to bring
Which
light to them. Hmm.
to me is ballsy, just because you're literally, like, again, people, like, you think of it being in the 1800s that would have had this kind of crime going on, but it's still very prevalent in the States. Obviously, I don't, you know what, we're gonna have to Google into this at some point in time, but I don't think we have any cattle rustlers up here in Canada. I don't think I've ever heard of.
Maybe like
Maybe in
Calgary,
Alberta.
Calgary, like Alberta, Saskatchewan area.
So I'm kind of thinking up, but I don't think any of ours have ever made headlines.
I
So
know.
it's impressive because you're literally writing about current day. Like, you weren't doing stuff where you're like, oh yeah, back in the 1800s, a distant cousin of mine took on these other criminals, and this was going on. You literally had this going on currently. You're taking on current, still prevalent criminals in this day. And you're saying earlier that you were getting threats on your life and on your family for doing it.
Hmm. Yeah, the individuals that I exposed, they paid their way. They know people in high places. You know how that
Mhm.
works.
Yep,
Yep.
Somebody
yep.
up higher, they're gonna, yeah. They were supposed to serve time for their crimes. So like I said, Bob escaped jail twice. The first time he escaped, it was in Callahan County, Texas, which is in Baird,
Mhm.
Texas. Um, the individual who facilitated the escape got away with his crime. And I happened to find some information at the jailhouse that they thought they'd gotten rid of. And the lady that I was talking to in the jail, she said, why didn't he serve any time for this? And I said, well, I don't know. You tell me. Uh, you're you're in the jailhouse. So I've gathered all this information, all these people that have gotten away with all these different crimes that they've committed. And we're just hoping something will come of this because we're wanting to bring a lot of things to light. Um, when Bob ended up going, when he ended up going to prison the first time because he violated his probation
Mm.
because he was caught up with these individuals. Um, he met and married his then wife. And they got married when he was, by proxy. They got married when he was in prison. And she pulled him into this even further, and she was tied up with him. And
Really?
yeah, but get this: when she got, when he got out, they had a ranch, and she was setting up affairs for him to blackmail these women. And she oversaw a party ranch that the two of them had. And so she was videotaping guests who had really exceptional credit. If they had wonderful credit, meant they had money. So they could come
Mm-hmm.
on out to the ranch and have as much fun as they wanted. Videotape them and then
Damn.
blackmail them. Yeah. And let me share this with you. Through my research, I uncovered that this woman, now she was charged, she had all these charges, and it's in the book, you'll have to you'll have to read it, but she was getting loans at banks on the cattle, which was federal. It wasn't just state, it was escalated to, it was a federal charge. So
Mm-hmm.
that's serious. um So she had all these charges. It was all said and done. She got minimal time in the jail, and she was supposed to get prison time. She skated her way through it. But today, I don't know if she's doing it now, but when I checked last, which was probably about a year ago, 6 months, she was overseeing the finances of a worldwide adoption agency.
Oh, good God.
So I wanted to expose all this, and I wanted people to understand that my family member is, yeah, he's involved, but he's involved in the cattle side of things. All these other people need to be exposed. And
Mhm.
I wanted to do that. I wanted to bring light to it.
That is some deep-seated stuff to go through. Like, I
Yeah.
I wouldn't have pictured, like, you go away to prison, you're
Mhm.
not thinking that, "Oh, hey, I'm gonna come back and have my wife actually make it worse for me." Like, you'd be thinking most women, like, when you see them portrayed in movies, TVs, unless you're, Lady Macbeth, you're you're like, "I want better for my husband." Like, "Hey, no more of this crime stuff. You're done. You cut out. You stopped."
Was
Instead,
she
she's like,
she met him while they were while he was in prison, and she was actually involved with the people that paid his bonds, and so she was a part of them. And what they did was they were trying to stay connected to him, and I
mhm,
had shown where she is tied to these individuals, even to this day. And in the back of my book, my index is, I can't remember, I think it's 20 something pages. And I have,
Oh.
yeah, I have all the stuff where individuals have contacted me, and they were involved in the crimes, and they wanted to get away from these people, and they stepped forward and they said, I want to tell you what I know. And I put that in the back of the book. I referenced the material that they sent me. They still, to this day, will send the individuals that paid his bonds, will mail stuff to him. Bob is still alive. He's incarcerated. He's serving 14 life sentences, and those
oof.
charges are from when he escaped jail the second time. That's how they were able to get him.
So
Yeah.
let me ask you, when you were uncovering all of this and you decided to write a book, at any time did you ever fear for your safety, your family's safety?
I've never feared for my safety, but I have for my family, for my loved
Yeah.
ones. I have an amazing support system. They are fantastic. Friends and family, editor, literary attorney. I now have a PA. I didn't get Laura my PA until I was ready to publish the book, and she helped me with that. But there were times when I wanted to walk away from this, and everybody around me said, you've got a story, you got to keep going. My family was strong with it. They wanted the story told.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I go to book signings today and or book events. These individuals that I expose will contact me beforehand and tell me that they want to meet and speak with me, or they'll just show up at the events. Now,
Really?
I'm not afraid for my life, but when my loved ones are with me, you better watch out.
That would be so unnerving though. Like, I don't know. My mom's side of the family has a lot of skeletons in the closet. and it's always been said that, so my mom is the youngest of 16
Jeez, I always forget how
children.
many. So many.
And all of her siblings always said my mom should write a book about the happenings from like 1924 to the mid 80s. I would be so apprehensive to expose anything that would be portrayed as bad, I guess, like vindictive, or like I would think that, like, for you, Bob is your cousin.
Yes.
So I would feel like Bob's parents, siblings, children, whatever, would feel like I was personally attacking Bob, unless they're all in the crime family, and then I'm
No,
sure
no,
they
no.
would feel.
No, our family was not a part of that. His immediate family wanted the story to be told. We all wanted the story to be told. The individuals that I'm exposing um, have made it clear, and it's all in the book. I state all of this. If any of this is to come out, they could easily make a car wreck look like an accident. Well, let me tell you something. When you threaten a family for so long, they're not going to put up with it. And when I learned about this, when I found out about Bob, and I reached out and I said, I'm your cousin, our grandpas were brothers, and I want to write this. Now, when I reached out to him, I didn't know all of this other stuff. What I contacted him about was the jail escape from Grayson County. I didn't learn all this other stuff until I started researching and getting court records and speaking to him and other people. And that's when I realized, wait a minute, this story is bigger than I originally thought. And so once I uncovered all that, everything just, doors started swinging open. But our family is ready for the story to come out. Let me tell you something. If you don't speak up, then you're doing the same thing these people are doing, which is protecting them. And they don't deserve to be protected. They're hurting people, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I glanced through some of the stories that I Googled, which I sent to you, by the way, Taylor. So
I saw them.
they will definitely be on my afternoon reading list, and I'm really going to try to find that Kindle.
I say this is going to
Okay,
be one of
no.
the low jacks on the Kindle going,
That's
come
okay.
on, get over here. So
I've been there. I get it. No, I understand.
so you actually, so Bob obviously knows all about this. Like, as you uncovered more with each, like, I'm picturing basically kind of like it's going to be like a Shrek onion reference where there's layers to it. With each layer, did you go back to Bob and you were like, yo, what the hell is this? What's this? Like, hey, I removed another layer. Like, did he share a lot of stuff with you as you got further and further down, or was he still worried
Yeah.
about being in debt to them?
He shared with me everything he could. Family and friends did, but there were some things he wasn't aware of too that I
Wow.
uncovered. Yeah. He hasn't been able to read the book. Let me just tell you that he hasn't been able to read the book because I'm trying to get it into TDC, the Texas penal system. And we're going through the whole process. They don't want everybody knowing about how he escaped the jail. They don't want to give anybody any ideas, which I get. I
Yeah.
understand that. And I've removed a lot of that. I've removed a majority of that stuff, but we keep, so I think I'm going to end up having to meet with the board members of TDC and going that route.
Wow.
But I'm Bob's power of attorney. He wanted me to write this. I mean, I had to make sure that I had everything in place to write the story. You know what I mean? I have the rights to the story. I could do with it as I wished. Um, there are things in the book that he doesn't know. There are individuals who told on each other, and he doesn't know that. They came forward to help him. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot in the story that he doesn't.
So, as other members of this crime ring came to you to tell their story, did you use their real name, or did you give them aliases to help protect them?
The individuals who stepped forward, I didn't use their real name. All the others, I did.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. The one that made sure to let us know if we told the story and, he could make it look like a accident. I put his name in there. I put everybody's name in there that threatened us, came forward.
Good. Oh, good.
Yeah, everybody's name. I wasn't protecting them. I will say this. Now, the story has the story has so many layers. Um, so I had mentioned that Bob was involved in a 8-hour standoff with law enforcement at the very end of the book. After he and the
Oh,
other
okay.
4 offenders escaped the jail. Um, and the book goes into his reason for escaping the jail. The individuals that, well, you have to go.
Don't spoil it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he went to their homes to confront them because they were involved and they knew about him escaping and they weren't
Oh.
home. And I have proof of that. I have proof of that in the book. I have proof. I have proof of where they were and what was going on. You just have to read. You know what? You put a family member in the mix, they want to know what happened. You're going to get all the details you didn't expect. But
Oh yeah, you suddenly become the full FBI, CIA, everything where you're like, I have found all of the dots.
that's right, because we want answers. But I became very close to a lot of people in the story. The Foresters, they were the married couple who were held hostage in their home. They I became very close to them. And Vincent, Irma, the wife, had passed away. I got to do an interview with her on the phone. I didn't get to meet her in person, but Vincent and the rest of their family and I became very close. And they had a huge impact on me when I wrote the story. Huge impact. Um, they were some of my biggest supporters. They wanted their story to be told of what happened at the end. So there's so many different sides to the story. It's not just the individuals that I'm exposing in the beginning. It's also the victims, and I'm telling everyone's story as I go through the book. And so the story has many voices in it. It has so many versions to it, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Okay, so how long is the book? Like, is it a good thick read, or is it something that you could read in a day?
I've got it right here. Let me tell you. It is 200 and it's about 200 and probably about 200, what is that? Probably about 270 pages.
Okay, so it's a decent size.
Yeah. And like I said,
still be through it like that.
and like I said, the index is about 20 pages long. And when I took this on, before I even started it, I got a literary attorney because I was exposing all these people,
Right.
I wanted to make sure what I could and couldn't do legally, and I wanted to make sure I was protected. So I had Gwen with me from pretty much the beginning. And then I had my editor, John. He's been with me since day one. And I wanted to make sure that I'm telling such a big story. I wanted it to be done correctly. I wanted it to be done professionally. So I made sure I had these people on my team. So it wasn't just me telling the story, there were other people involved.
Yeah, or say you're more like the what are they called? Kind of like the ghost writers, where you're writing from your perspective, but then you're also going and grabbing so many other people's and telling their stories with it. That it's no longer just your own story. You're just bringing all the pieces together and just getting the information out there so everyone can know about it and be aware and have that moment of, I'm sure people have probably read it and gone, oh, we know him. We know exactly who that is.
Well, and those that don't know him read the book, and it happened. I mean, it was 23 years ago. And so there are people who recognize it and say, hey, this is, I recall this. But the reviews online people are just amazing with the reviews. I mean, if you read those, I can't believe how well it's taken off.
Yeah.
It just for it, and it's my first book, and for a first timer,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you took on a lot. Like
Yeah,
most
for
people
a
with the
first book, it's very ambitious.
yeah, like most people when they're doing their first book, they're like, "Hey, you know what? I put together this simple, easy plot. I'm doing all this," and you're like, "Nah, I'm gonna do it all. I'm gonna go talk to all of these people. I'm gonna get all the life threats and threatening my family. I'm just gonna get out of the way in the first book and be like, I'm ready for more."
You'll have
Stephen King threw away his first book, and if it wasn't for his wife fetching it out of the trash, he wouldn't be where he was today. So think of that.
I went into this. I was angry because I heard about these individuals I was exposing, and I thought, if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to expose them. I want to get them put behind bars. I want to do whatever I can if that's possible. I don't want them just behind bars. I want them underneath the bars. I want
All of them.
I mean, Bob might have done a lot of things and he might be a lot of things, but he's not the only one that,
Yeah.
and
Well,
that's the family side of it. We all feel like that in the family. We
yeah.
do.
Well, I would
Yeah.
say he kind of sounds like the low man on the totem pole, where it's all of these guys are above him and just forced him into a point where it was basically either you do it or either he's going to die or one of his loved ones going to die. Because that's always the way that it goes with those kind of people. Or they're like, well, you either do it or something bad's going to happen to you or something bad's going to happen to someone you know, kind of thing.
Yes, but to a point. To a
Mhm.
point. Now, I do want to say this. He's an adult and he could have gotten away. I mean, okay, let me say this. He was probably about 18 or 19 when he got involved with the DPS state trooper. Now, his dad is the one that introduced him to the trooper. He didn't have to do that, but he did. Once he got involved, he couldn't get out of it. And he tried. He tried to get out, but he couldn't. Once he got tangled up with all these other individuals, then yes. But when he escaped the Grayson County Jail, his second jail escape, there were a lot of people who were hurt, and he didn't have to do that. So he is responsible for, I mean, he didn't have to do that, but he did. You know, I'm that damn family member that if my loved ones, actually our whole family is this way, if any of our loved ones do something that they shouldn't and they know better, we're going to call them out. And I do that with him.
Not a bad way to be.
I second that.
Yeah, somebody's got to do that. He told me a while back, why do you keep telling me? And I say, because I don't want it to happen again. Not that it would, but it's just, he didn't have a rearing. His rearing wasn't any good. And
yeah.
I don't know.
So how old is Bob now?
He's 60.
Okay.
Yeah, he's 60. So he was about 38 when all of that went down with his ex-wife and the party ranch and all that stuff. Yeah, and there were a lot of people involved in that.
I would think so too, especially with that kind of a setup.
He, oh God, how do I put this tactfully? His life of crime started at an early age.
It sure did. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, he was about 18, 19. Actually, when he was, I don't know, he was probably, I'm trying to think, 15 or 16. See, he had been raised in the lifestyle of ranching, because his father was a rancher, and then Bob eventually fell into that. That's what he grew up. That's all he knew. So his dad had him stealing cattle medicine, vaccinations and things for cattle, and selling it. So he started early, but it wasn't until he was Like I said, probably about 18 or 19 when he got into stealing the cattle. And it just
Wow.
it kept getting bigger.
Yeah.
Um, I do state in the book, this made my this made my job a lot more fun. He is a compulsive liar.
Oh God.
So every time I verified something, what he'd tell me I'd take with a grain of salt, but I had to verify it in other places. And so I'd have to get court transcripts. I'd have to verify everything with other individuals. I wouldn't put it unless I couldn't verify it.
The
But
amount of legwork that you had to do for this, just because,
Right?
like, so I come from a family that is completely, excuse my French, but fucked up, where my mom has been in that same boat where people have told her entire life, they're like, you need to write a story, you need to write a book. And her and I talked about it. And for the first time, I think it was last year, she said, you know what? I think it's finally getting to the time that I could write it. And it's because of the same reason that you were saying earlier, Dana, where it was there were too many people still alive from it that could come forward and be like, hey, we don't need that printed. So she's now at
Yeah.
that point where she's like, I think all of them, or almost all of them, are dead by now. So she's like, I could write it and not have to worry about the damn things. But the amount of legwork that you have to put in for stuff like that, because we have, like, in our family, my mom's mother, um, is a horrible compulsive liar, where we don't know, like, we want family history from her for, like, even just health history. And we can't trust a word that comes from her mouth. And because of, for us up here in Canada, we have really strict privacy laws. You can't just walk in and be like, hey, that's my mom. I need to know, like, hey, these surgeries that she had when I was younger, what were they? So it
mhm.
kind of sucks where we're like, okay, yeah, I'm glad that we have such strict privacy laws, but at the same time, you're kind of like, hey, I'd like a few little answers over here, and I feel like you don't want to get them to me. So it's
my
just
well,
incredible.
I tell you this when my attorney, I had another attorney before I got Gwen, and sometimes you have to go through one or two individuals that you're working with to make sure you have the right one on board. So
Mhm.
I had another attorney who helped me get all this together, and then I found Gwen. But before Gwen, the other gal had she made sure that I had rights to everything for Bob, and he didn't have a problem giving me that because I knew I would have to go here in the States. We have the FBI, so I needed to
Mhm.
get the FOIA records if I wanted to get his payroll information to show proof that he was with these individuals, that he,
Mhm.
was in fact working with them. I could have that because I didn't, and my attorneys didn't want me to come to a stumbling block and say, okay, if you can't prove this, you can't put it. So they made sure I was protected. Um, so I don't know if in Canada, if there's some way, and you would know this, as far as medical, if you can get like a power of attorney type of thing where you can get those records. I don't know. I'm just throwing out
Um,
an idea.
Can, but it's even that stuff is strict. At least what I've noticed. I don't know about you, Dana.
so um you have to have proof beyond a shadow of a doubt that the individual whose medical records you are seeking is incompetent of making their own medical decisions,
Yeah.
Oh, I gotcha. I gotcha.
or they're dead.
Yeah, I say, and even when they're dead, like, even for a lot of the stuff, just because I know for us with my papa when he passed, my mom was helping,
Hmm.
and a lot of it was even when he passed, the government's like, oh well, hope you had the passwords for all this stuff, and you're like, well, I don't, but we'd kind of like to be able to see and be able to move the things around, close what we need. They're like, nope. You have to prove that he's dead. You have to prove that you have power of attorney. You have to prove that you have all the bills before. You have to prove that it's his. It's like, okay, that's cool. That's fine.
It's basically protection because
Sure.
I remember going through it when Norm's mom passed away, when my
Mhm.
my husband when my mother-in-law died. It was it was suspicious as to what actually happened, in the hospital when she passed away. So we had to prove that we had to have the death certificate, send a copy to the hospital in order for the hospital to send us the medical records of the 3 days that she was there before she died. The stack was that big.
Oh my gosh.
I still
Yeah.
have it. Like it's crazy. As for her family physician, of course, the hospital notifies him that his patient has been deceased. They gave it to Norm. Dr. Wacker gave Norm her complete medical history. No problem. I think if your family, immediate family, there's
Yes.
no
Yes.
issues. But if you're like a grandchild, a cousin, lower than a spouse or a child, it's all got to go through the courts.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's always that it depends on the doctor too, because some of them are really strict with it. They're like, oh no, I won't give it to you. And then there's other ones that are like, well, I know you were here, so here you go. Like, you were in the room for all the diagnoses. Like, obviously you need to see the files. So there's definitely some of them that work with you more so than others. So I think that'd probably be like the stumbling block that we probably have up here in Canada, is it would probably take forever to write a story like this.
Yeah.
Just to try and get it all put together.
See, and that was something else, because I'm not immediate family, and that's why my attorney did it the way. Yeah. Now, if it was mom or dad or children or siblings, they probably would have had to have something legally, but it probably wouldn't have been as, but because I'm not immediate family, that's why my attorney did that. Because, but we have strict HIPAA laws here with medical, and so I can understand what you are talking about with the medical there. But oh my gosh, that's I don't know. I had a lot of family. So let me tell you kind of what sparked this. When people were going to ancestry.com, they wanted to know who we're related to, who's dead and who are they, and are we part of that? Well, I thought, well, here we got this guy over here. We're related to him, and nobody in the family was researching him. So
which is surprising.
Well, everybody in my generation and younger had never really heard of Bob, parents and everyone older had. And so that's kind of what got this all going, was the digging. And I think if it hadn't been that family angle, I would have given up on this, especially with all the dangers,
Yeah.
Well, I think it adds that extra incentive, because it's, I know for I'm sure any of our listeners, because we won't have like young people listening to this, it's probably more people our ages and above. They'll all understand, like, especially the ancestry.ca or .com, wherever you were in the world. That was such a big thing for probably like a decade or so, maybe longer.
Oh yeah.
Where it was everywhere you looked, everyone was like, oh my God, I just did my ancestry.com, and these are all the people. Look who I'm related to. Look at all this stuff. And it drove, I know, like, for several of my friends, it drove them to actually look in more into their family trees, because they're like, oh, I didn't know I was related to this one. And then start going off into little rabbit holes throughout the family tree, where you're like, I want to know more about this. I didn't know I was related to this. Oh, what about this?
Yeah, but with something like Ancestry, you really got to be careful.
Yeah, you do. You sure do.
During the height of COVID,
Do you remember when it got hacked?
No. My aunt came over, and she just sat at the table, and I made coffee, and I looked at her. I'm like, Anna Irene, what's going on? And she's like, let me tell you a story.
Uh-oh.
At the age of 76, discovered that she had 3 siblings
Oh wow.
that she
See,
never knew about.
you
All
don't.
because
Yeah.
her cousin did Ancestry.com and found them.
Yeah.
My God. Oh my gosh.
Like,
Was it like DNA stuff? Like, did people submit their
Yeah,
swab,
spit in
I was just
the
gonna say that's what I always assumed it was like a cheek
spit in the
swab
tube
kind of
and send
thing.
it away.
yeah.
I mean, it's amazing what we can do with all of this, but I thought that you were going to reference because I remember I'm pretty sure it was during COVID. Mind you, my judgment of time since the Rona hit has all gone right out the window. I no longer know. But I think it was during COVID that they had a hack at Ancestry. Like people actually broke into the data banks,
Oh my God, I
and
didn't know that. That's
people
wild.
were people were freaking out around the world. And I was sitting there. I'm like, my mom was reading me the articles about it. I heard about it on the TikTok, and I can remember sitting there like I looked at him like I don't understand why everyone's all up in a fuss about it. It's like, oh well, they got into ancestry.ca, they have your spit and that, and they're like, apparently some people went down the rabbit hole of dark evilness, and they're like, now they can find out where everyone lives and they can send us DNA based illnesses. I'm like, well, that I don't think that's exactly where they're going to go with that. But
Well,
you guys went dark.
the reality is, if you have skeletons in the closet, man, they just came out doing like the high kick from the Rockettes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like when my Aunt Irene was telling us exactly what had happened, she has 3 older siblings
Really?
that she knew of, her 2 sisters,
Okay.
a younger brother, and then found out that in between her 2 sisters being born, she had her mom had 3 other children that she gave up for adoption.
Oh
And
my.
then she had my Aunt Irene. So, you know, she would like my aunt was very angry
Yeah.
Yeah.
to because her mom had passed away, so she couldn't go to her mom and say,
What the hell?
why, why didn't you tell us it?
Like
And
that's
that's what
just
she said. She goes, it's a curse and a blessing, because she goes, I could have gone my the rest of my life not knowing these people and been okay. She goes, but now that I know that they exist, it's almost like I need to find them and meet them, because they're all in their mid 80s.
oh
So
yeah.
could you imagine
Wow.
finding a sibling and only having maybe 2 or 3 years of knowing them?
Like that's just mind-boggling to me. It's just talk about a plot twist late in
I
life.
know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking how old school I am, how I don't, I didn't do any of this. I
Well,
didn't
me
do
neither.
the
I'm scared.
ancestry.com. Yeah. I know, right? But I'm thinking, here I am going and doing things the way they used to do them. And they're these individuals, these people, and I have found my family, I have family. They were online looking and searching. And like you were saying, you only have X amount of years with them. And I think to me, that would be scarier doing it that way than the way I did it.
Yeah.
Well,
I
I
do.
like the old school way where you're just like slowly lifting off the layers seems less daunting in a way compared to when you just rip them off like with ancestry, you're just ripping it all off in one
Yeah.
go and you're like, wow, your
Yeah,
family.
well, like my Aunt Irene got an email, because once you register on ancestry.com or CA, they have your email.
Mhm.
So if somebody finds out that they're connected to you,
Mhm.
they can email you through Ancestry. So
Oh, that's how they do it.
can you imagine getting an email from somebody that says, I think you're my great aunt?
That would be so life-changing. It would be, I mean, that would just be, you have to be careful how you present information to people. Seriously, because you don't
Exactly.
know,
Yep.
like you were saying, your aunt was just devastated by this news, and I,
Well, you know what? Actually, weirdly coincidental timing for this. But Dana, you know that I've been watching the final season of The Blacklist,
Mm.
and again, really phenomenal show. You should watch it.
oh yeah, we do. Yeah.
See? Okay,
I'll get
so
around to it, I promise.
okay, so then you remember the character, crap, what's her name? Sia. She's the daughter of Agent Mira, and
Mhm.
she finds out after her mom's been dead for, God, it's got to be, I think she dies like 5 or 6 seasons prior,
Mhm.
and it's in the final season that she finds out that her mom's not her mom at all, like 0% match for
Mhm.
DNA.
Mhm. Sorry, we're
And
ruining this for you, by
Oh,
the
no,
way.
you know what? Honestly, I'll have forgotten by the
I was
time
just going to say,
watch it.
she won't even remember we talked about this by 5 minutes from now. But she is devastated.
Mhm.
Like, to me, it was an instant thing of, okay, when she's like, my mother's not my mother. It's like, Broad, she raised you. She is your mother. She had you from the time you were an infant
Mhm.
all the way until she passed away, whatever the 6 years prior. It's like, she raised you. She's still your mama.
Mhm.
And she struggles with it because she finds out so blatantly, like her mom didn't get a chance to tell her. She only finds out because one of the other guys goes, here you go, I ran the DNA for you. And she looks, and like I said, zero. Big fat goose. It's not even any semblance of an idea. There's no familial relationship whatsoever, just 0%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I've heard of stories
Mhm.
where people have done this, where they've gone and done the ancestry.com or
Mhm.
.ca, and they
Mhm.
get it back and they're like,
What do you
Mom,
mean I
Dad,
was adopted?
it's like, Mom, Dad, do you have something to tell me? And they're like, what are you talking about, sweetie? Do you see this ancestry? And they're like, oh. Oh. Like,
It's a, for me, ancestry.ca is a line I'm not sure I'm ever going to jump over.
Yeah, I don't have any siblings. I don't have, but I can understand people that learn that, or their parent isn't actually their parent. I'm like you. That's a line I don't want to cross. I just,
Yeah.
luckily my loved ones found out that we were related to, people, they dated them back to England and Ireland and this and that. And my mom would say, well, I wonder what so and so did. And I'm like, well, you don't have to wonder it with Bob because I've already got it because it's more recent. But
yep.
back then you have questions, And so
We
it's
know what Bob's hobbies were.
yeah, yeah.
Well, and
Yeah, but I would be the same way. I wouldn't want to cross that line either. Yeah.
or say, and I don't know if it's still a prevalent thing for you guys down south today. I know, like, historically speaking, like, we all see it in movies, and I've talked to other friends before, but you all used to have family Bibles that you'd
Uh-huh.
literally keep family trees in and the genealogy of your entire family, which in today's day and age, I'm sure it probably seems weird to the newer generations where they're like, why would you do that? It's like, yeah, but you can literally follow the entire line for hundreds of years going
Your
all the way
bloodline,
back.
yeah.
Like, we
Yeah, yeah.
had um oh crap, I can't remember her name now. The owner of Cambry House there, for the house that she has, so she has a haunted wedding venue.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah.
I don't remember if it's by sheer dumb luck or the grace of God or gods, but
Mhm.
she actually has the family Bible from the original family that owned the house just before they bought it.
Oh, wow.
So she literally has every single name through it. And it's fascinating and amazing to me that you can have stuff like that, because you literally get to look back through your family tree and you can say, oh, yeah, there's grandma, there's grandma's grandma, there's grandma's
Mhm.
grandma's grandma. Like, you get to go through all of it and you have that at your fingertips. And
I'm not,
it's
well,
interesting.
I'm not sure if other families do. I know that my family does. We do on both sides of our family, but that's because my grandparents and aunts and uncles just kept really good records of things, you know. So I know we do that. We have that, but I don't know. You know, things are changing. People don't. The newer generations, they don't do that anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe that's why they're going to ancestry.com. They're trying to get those answers.
It's the digital version of the family Bibles where they're like, oh, I never knew what
Yeah.
that was. And you're like, it's your family. It's your
Well-
family in the book.
Think about it. As somebody who has a 26-year-old daughter, my daughter likes to live the minimalist
Mhm.
way of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if my family had been a family that had that family Bible passed along,
Mhm.
it ended with me because Samantha wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
What am I going to do with it? It's just going to take up space in my house.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just that things are just so different now than they
Yeah,
were.
it's
Yeah.
the digital age, the electronic age, right?
Yeah.
Now everything can be held on a cell phone, and literally, I
Mhm.
guarantee you, that's what's going to be passed down for generations now is cell phones. Like,
Well,
look at this. My grandma used to listen to an iPod, you know.
even when it was outdated during her time, she still had it hooked
Shut
up
up.
to her car.
Are we not mentioning VHS tapes or any of those? Is that too far back?
VHS tapes.
Cassettes. I still have a Walkman.
I was just gonna say, can't forget the 8-track players.
Yeah, exactly.
All the younger generations are like, the what? And you have to
8-track
be
player.
kind, rewind.
Yeah.
They're just
Yeah,
sitting there
yeah.
like, why would you rewind anything? I don't understand.
Yeah.
As they say, the newer generation will never know the joy of trying to record a song off the radio and making sure that the DJ stops talking before you hit record.
That's right.
Or you mess up and you don't hit the button at the right time and you miss like the first stanza of the song.
Yeah. Life was rough back then. That was
It
hard.
was.
The golden eras.
Exactly.
I'd be interested to see, like, this would be one of those time traveling questions that we did a couple episodes ago. Just to be able to see, go into the future and see if, because some things have made like a resurgence. Unfortunately, like some outfit styles have made resurgences when we sit there, we're like, it wasn't good the first time around. Please don't do it again. They're like, look at these. Isn't it awesome? You're like, no, it's not. Please stop wearing them. But I'd be interesting to see if there becomes like a digital version of the family Bible idea where people literally make it, and then like in your case, like for your cousin Bob, I could see someone actually putting together like a family tree idea and then having like a link going, okay, here's the ebook version of the Texas Swindler, followed by, and here's all the links that you use, and here's all this, and having someone generations from now going, holy crap. And literally just be able to go through all of the research that you had to do the footwork for, just being at someone's fingertips in 1 or 2 generations from now.
Well, I tell you what, we love him. He's family, but it's not something we're going to be telling everybody. But they can get the book if they want. That can be their famay family tree of
Like
him.
a little
Here's your
question mark on
inheritance.
the family tree. See
Where
your
did he
sequel
fall?
vote.
It's right here.
And you're like,
So-
he's over here, don't worry.
So now, this is what I would like to know. Did you tell the whole story, or could there be a sequel?
I was wondering that too.
I did tell
Like
the
a
whole
book, too.
story. I have a lot of people who ask me if I'm going to write a follow-up, and I will if there's a serious investigation. I wrote the
Ooh.
whole thing. Yeah, I put everybody's name in it. That was
I'm-
involved. Yeah.
Honestly, if you were Canadian, the RCMP would be knocking on your door going, so lady, how did you find this out? And
So-
what do we need to do?
I tell you, everything I have is believe it or not, it's public information. And of course, I've done my interviews. So I just I'm just I think I'm just like every other family member. I want answers.
It's
And I wasn't gonna stop till I got them, you know.
it's mind-blowing because you said some of these people are still walking free.
Yeah.
So it's public record
Mhm.
how bad they are and what they've done, but they're still walking free.
That's who they know.
I was just say it tells you it's very much who they know, how much money they have, the influence and power they have over people. Like again, it's going to be a weird weird reference, but Blacklist. When you watch that, that's the perfect. That is the epitome of showing what a person can do when they're in the crime world, and they have the right connections, they have the right blackmail, they have the right amount of money to be able to change everything worldwide.
Well, let me tell you something that is kind of, to me now, I can look back and I think it's kind of humorous because the guy's a real idiot, and I'd like to share this because I think it's worth telling. When I first took this project on, there was an individual who I exposed in the book, and they met with me, and they wanted to know if they could write the book with me. They didn't know anything about writing.
Oh.
What they wanted to do was they wanted to oversee what I was going to put in the book. And they wanted to do it and let Bob know, but they didn't want Bob to know just how involved they were. And I told them, I said, no, I'm not going to do this. I don't know. You don't know anything about you. They didn't want anything to do with my book. Luckily, I was able to put them in the book because they were in the police report. So I was thrilled about that. But he he was wanting to know if I was going to put names of individuals in the book. He was wanting to see who I was. He's one of them that was scared. He was involved. He was involved in the crimes. So I had to be careful, obviously, and I couldn't trust anyone that came to me that I didn't know about the story. And they were all scared. You know, they ended up trying to put out their own version of a book, and they kind of told on themselves a little bit. It
kind of
was
works like if
embarrassing.
you do it, yeah, or say like if you do it right, you can kind of get ahead of some of it and be like, well,
Yeah.
we already admitted to these things anyways. But I feel like you did a deep dive into everything. So when you're like, oh yeah, you told stuff I wasn't even going to tell on, I'm going to tell on these things. And they're like, well, we told about the money laundering. What do you have? I have the skeletons. Bye.
I don't know. I think when I wrote it, it just seemed like everything fell into place for me. And I know that it was my story to tell because I tried to walk away from it a few times, obviously with all the things that happened. You know, our lug nuts were loosened, the work was deleted, all this stuff happened. And I thought, I just don't want to have to do this. And then things just kept, doors started opening again. And I don't know. I don't know. The way that everything unfolded and the way that I was able to tell the story, it was pretty awesome. But like I said, for a first time book, I mean,
that's the part that I find
it's like
amazing. It's
I'm
your
surprised
first book.
I'm surprised it's only 200 and some odd pages. I would be like in the thousands at this point.
Dana would be spiraling, going, I don't know what to put in the books. I got it all.
Series.
Well, I had worked with private investigators before I did this. I was not licensed, but I had worked with some of the best. And so that's kind of how I knew what to look for, maybe, and how to approach
That would
this.
definitely have to, like, yeah, that would definitely have to help.
Yeah.
Give you some life skills that other people are lacking.
So that really helped me. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't share this, but I'm going to. My editor, John. So I had the story. I knew the story from beginning to end. I'd send it to him. He'd make the revision, send it back to me, and he'd say, okay, tell me a little more about this. I'd tell him that and a lot more. And he'd say, "How did you know this? How did you know all this?" And I was like, "I've got personal information. Do you want their license plates? Do you want this? Do you want that?" Because when they were on the run, they had to put APBs and all this stuff out on these individuals. And I'm
Yes.
like, "I've got all this stuff. Do you want to put it in the book?" He said, "No, we can't put all that in the book." But
Like, sure we can.
I mean, I put everything in there I could, weight, height, everything. Um, because like I said, I wanted answers. I wanted
Yeah.
and these people are afraid, obviously, because of the information.
Mhm.
But the book's been out for 2 years. Um,
Where
and
can
there's
our listeners purchase book?
oh, well, you can actually get the book. You can get it anywhere online. You just type in the Notorious Texas Swindler. It's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere, everywhere. You
Okay.
can get it in most libraries in the U.S. and it's all over. It's in several other countries. It's all over the world. You just Google it and get it online. Um, I also have it on my website too. I
Okay.
have it in paperback, softback, and then a paperback, hardback, and ebook. So you can get that on my website. If you want a signed copy, that's usually where I send people to, or you can go anywhere and
In
get
case
the
anyone's
ebook.
wondering,
Yeah,
this is what it looks like on the Amazon.
yeah, that's one of them. That's actually
Well,
the softback, the paperback. Yeah.
if you would like to send us your website,
Okay.
we can add it. We
Add
can
it to
add it
the
into the show and
yep.
direct people there for book purchases.
Okay. Okay. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah,
Oh,
and
no problem.
I made sure that I wanted it to be in libraries too. I wanted it to be available in libraries all over the U.S. And I wanted to be anywhere books are sold. So anywhere in Canada that besides bookstores, wherever um, you guys y'all have libraries. I'm sure that
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
I would love to have my book in one of your libraries. I just want the story out there. That's what's so important to me is getting the story out there. I want everybody to know the truth of what really happened.
Yeah, because it is history.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I would say it should be taught as part of history, especially for local history. And I was going to say, I'll also add this one for the Notorious Texas Swindler second edition, approved for penal institution.
Yeah, so that's actually that's the one we're trying to get in to the Texas penal institutions. I'll tell you why I did that. Um, there's two covers for the first edition. There's a hardback and a paperback. They're different. I love the artwork. The guy that did my covers, I couldn't pick, so I went with both. But that one that you just showed, that one you just showed, was a drawing that he did, and we have it in the first edition. Um, one of the reasons I was
Here's the
so
hardcover that she's talking about.
yeah, that's it. That's it. One of the reasons that I came out with the second edition so quickly is because there are websites that sell to family members who have loved ones that are incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so worried that if they bought the book that they may not be able to get it into the prisons or the jails. And so I wanted to do a second version and I wanted to remove stuff from it because I
Ah.
didn't want them to spend money and not get the book and be out their money. So that was one of the reasons why I was so quick to get the second edition out there.
That's
Um,
actually the number one, really smart, and number two, really sweet to be able to do. Because I mean,
Thank
that
you.
had to have been hard to go through. Because I mean, the books basically become like your little brain baby.
Yeah.
So it had to have been hard to actually go in and be like, okay, I got to make a deep cut. I got to cut this section out. I got to cut this section out so that it can go into the jail systems. So that must have been, to me, that would be grueling. Going, okay, well, I got to cut this out.
But it really wasn't that bad for me to do it. I think what I was more concerned was the individuals. You have people who are incarcerated, and um, you have to consider their family members are buying them books. They want to send them a book. And if they spend the money and they have it sent in and it's denied, they usually destroy the book or they have it
Oh,
sent back to the family member. The people that buy the book from the booksellers can't get their money back. So I thought, okay, I want to fix this because these people are spending money to do this, and
mhm.
I didn't want I didn't want them to be out that money.
Right.
It was just important.
Yeah.
It was about getting Bob to read it, but then all of a sudden it was like, well, screw him. Let's get this taken care of so these other people, 'cause, so I believe it's available in other penal institutions. It's just not yet in Texas. Um,
They're sitting there. They're like, look, we don't want to relive this.
yeah, yeah. But actually, the stuff that I took out is, it's not something new. It's stuff that they would see in a movie.
Mhm.
Stuffing
Mm-hmm.
mattresses. I mean, they get to watch Shawshank Redemption or something.
Yep.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I
And
have.
what we were like, it's already out there. It's already been done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I took out what needed to come out, and I agree it did if it was going into penal institutions. But
Yeah.
I have a feeling I'll get an answer this week. I have a feeling if they don't approve it, I will go back in front of the board members and I will meet with them and say, okay, what do we need to do? Because every time I make a change, it costs money, and
Mhm.
I have my
Yeah.
PA has to stop what she's doing, and I don't want to disrupt her schedule. Um, so it's a matter of getting it done right, you know.
Well, especially if they have a specific section that they do not want in it,
Mhm.
makes more sense to me for them to be like, okay, listen, we don't want the inmates to read this, this, and this. So if you take that out, then we'll put it into the jails and we'll be fine with it.
And that's what I was told the first time, and I took that out. And what happens is, so when it goes into the mailroom in TDC, they have these gals in the mailroom who flip through the books and they say, oh, wait, what is this? So then they flag it and send it on. So I've already been told once what
Oh.
needed to be removed. So now we have another gal who's trying to call some authority and say, wait a minute, when the book's already been reviewed.
Yep.
But the process is you have to send the book in for an offender, and then once it gets to the mailroom, if it's a new book, then they have to enter in the system. So they just scroll through it. You get somebody who, like I said, thinks they have authority. Oh, my
Yes.
goodness. So that's where we're at. We're round two is where we're at right now with it. So we'll see.
And so yeah, we all hit that one person at least once or twice in our lives where they're like, yeah, I have authority, and you're like, you really don't, but you're going to make my life a living hell because you think that you do, and you just want to raise a stink about it.
That's when you go above everybody's head. You
Yep.
just climb right on over them. I've done that. I will say this, and this is part of my story. When I was writing the book, because it took me 12 years to write it. Um, Bob was transferred to a unit that was farther away from me, and I was going to interview him. Was trying to get information for the book. So he was moved about, I think, about 7 or 8 hours away from me. And I
Gosh.
Wow.
had requested to have him move closer to me so I could finish this damn book. I requested a hardship transfer and it was denied. Those are usually if someone is in population, he was in administrative segregations with the time. He was locked up 24 hours a day because of the escapes. And
Yeah.
Oh.
yeah, and now he's in population, but he you have to be an immediate family member, which I wasn't.
Mm.
I was the only one going to visit him at the time. So I requested to have him transferred. It was denied. So I went to an open public board meeting and I met with the board members, and they had the regional director from Huntsville, which is where he's at now, come in, and they actually approved it. We were the first transfer they'd approved in over a decade.
Wow.
So sometimes if you just climb right on over those people
Hmm.
Yeah.
that want to tell you
Yeah.
no,
It's
and the people that
basic
help.
perseverance, right?
I was going to say the squeaky wheel gets the grease there,
Yeah.
because it shows like you weren't just doing it for purely personal reasons of, well, I just don't want to drive the 6 or 8 hours here. I just want them closer so I can just see him once or twice. Like you had perseverance. I create new languages when I'm on this and in my day-to-day life. Today's word of the day, perseverance. Don't know what it means, but you had perseverance and you were doing it with a cause. Like it wasn't just, like I said, it wasn't just some run of the mill. Yeah, I'd like to see him on Christmas, so could you bring him closer? Like, I don't want to have to drive all that way.
But like I said, if it wasn't family, I would have walked away from it.
I think it adds that.
Yeah.
Like it adds the extra oomph behind it, because when it's not your family member, you're curious about it, but you're not invested in it. You're kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool to learn. But then when you hear about your own family members, you're like, what?
Hey.
I think you need to keep telling that story, Grandma. What did Grandpa do? And his brother did what? If I Google this, is this going to come up? Okay, I'm Googling this.
So does Bob have kids?
He does, but I don't really go into detail with him, because I'm so when it comes to family, I don't really discuss it. I'll mention him and a few other cousins, aunts or uncles, something like that, but I don't, for safety reasons, because of the individuals. So
I'm sure if the family didn't want any like some kids are obviously, it's 50-50 whether they want to admit that someone's their parent in that situation, or if they want to sit there and be like, hey, I changed my name and everything. No one can prove nothing.
Well, I think the takeaway from this is that what I exposed a lot of things that family, including his immediate family, did not know. There were a lot of things that were hidden. Like I said, there were things that he didn't even know. People that stepped forward. It goes into detail in the book in very early on. One of the individuals who was involved in the crimes had stated that they were asked to step forward to hurt individuals in our family if Bob wasn't taken care of. So it's important to know that it's important to know that the stuff that I uncovered, no one knew about these individuals stepping forward and saying, hey, this is what happened. This is what I want to tell. And for that reason, that's why I don't discuss family. I just won't,
Well, makes sense, just because like the other things, like obviously in Bob's case, he's well renowned by this point in time, where it's like, yeah, there's no need to be like, oh yeah, this guy broke out of jail a couple times. We were like, we know. So it makes sense. Like obviously he's given himself forward. The others who are the criminals, you want to expose. So you're like, here's their social insurance number. Here's their address. Here's their weight. Here's their height. Here's the cars they have, make, model, numbers.
And I was trying to give all of that information. My editor said, no, we're not putting that in the book. But as far as being related to him, we don't have any family members that say they're not.
Well, that's good.
Although we have a few who would like to strangle him, you know what I mean?
Yep, that I totally understand.
But as far as denying any relation to him, we don't have that. Not that I know of. Nobody's mentioned anything to me, but I wouldn't blame them if they did. But And
you're sitting there like, well, I wrote a full story on it. There's no denying my familial join to him.
Is most of your family in your location?
We're all in Texas. We're all in Texas. Yeah. And everybody was on board. Everyone wanted the story to come out. There was not one person who did not want the story told.
And just for any of our European friends, Texas is huge. So when she says, yes, we're all in Texas, that does not mean that they're like, an hour or so away or less. They could be like an entire day away. Just keep driving and be like, we're going to get there soon. Don't worry.
You're
Texas is big.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Well, I know for a lot of my my European friends, they're like, oh yeah, drive. I want to say the one day they were complaining about a 3-hour drive, which would take them through three different countries. And I was like, you guys realize that 3 hours, I'm not even to one of our major cities from where I am. You got to still tack on another hour, hour and a half before I hit Toronto.
Oh my
And then
goodness.
I'm still at the beginning of my province. And they just look confused where they're like, what? I'm like, the province is gigantic. Like, it takes ages to drive through it. Like, you can drive the entire day and you're still not actually out of the province yet. You're just like waiting, going, oh, I'm getting closer.
It's a vacation just to get out of
Exactly.
the area. Yeah.
You're just like, okay, well, depending on where you are in Texas, it's going to take a day.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know that other parts of the world are just like, say what now? Like, yeah, it's going to take some time. Don't worry, Europe. We're going to get there eventually. You all nap in the back.
But yeah, we all live fairly close, within a
good.
couple of hours of each other. Yeah. Yeah, there were, now when I first took this project on, there were individuals who in the family, they said, well, I don't want my name in there. I said, well, if you weren't involved, why would your name be in the book? It wouldn't be.
I was going to say that I would have more questions at that point in time.
Right. But once it was written and they read it, they said they had no idea. They knew that there was some crooked stuff going on, but they didn't realize the depth of it. They didn't. Yeah.
Like, Bob's in jail. They didn't realize the extra fingers that came off that sentence.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And they didn't know the lengths that the people went to protect themselves. Yeah. What's ironic, what's funny about it is, most of the individuals that I exposed that got out of their jail time, there were several of them who got out of their jail time the same way. And it's because of who they knew. And the individual at the top of this thing is idolized. Somebody that everybody idolizes. So I'm just excited as creamy peanut butter and chocolate ice cream until when that name gets to come out, because boy, will I be singing it. And I'm not a good singer, but the thing is, the story, they've been hiding, they've been protected for so long. It's time to bring them out.
Yes. Wow. Such an interesting story. I honestly cannot wait to read it, and I'll definitely do the Amazon review, and
thank you. I appreciate it.
Do the Goodreads.
Thank you.
I'll pop it in on Goodreads and do a review.
Thank you. An honest review. Yeah, I have.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of people. Yeah.
If I don't like a book, I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
Just because I know the author type thing.
Yeah. If you don't like my book, I'm okay. You just tell me. I mean, because, it's not for everyone. You know what I mean? You have to have an honest review. You got to leave it. And because people want to know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm a big fan of true crime, so I can't see me not liking it.
Yeah.
So she's going to love every moment of it, and then I get to hear the review straight from her going, okay, so I read this other part the other night.
Well, whenever you get a chance to read it, if you do, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So yeah.
Awesome. I will.
Yeah.
So well, we thank you. We thank you for coming on the show, and it has been a wonderful chat. Like I said, I am stoked to go grab a coffee and read those news articles and then find my Kindle.
Thank you. There is an article. It was in a magazine. I don't know if I should call them out, so maybe I won't. But it
wasn't the National Enquirer, was it?
No. in a magazine. Oh my God. It really upset me. The individual that wrote the article, it was about the jail escape and the Grayson County. And they compared the law enforcement, the officers, to, as they called them, Keystone Cops, and they were not Keystone Cops. Because I'm going to tell you
Oh,
something.
wow.
I interviewed law enforcement and Sheriff Gary, everybody on the SWAT team, Mark, I can't remember his last name. God, I should know this. I interviewed these people, and they were amazing. The minute they found out that they escaped the jail, they were working nonstop to bring them in. I mean, they
Right.
were tired, they were exhausted.
Yeah.
And so when I read that and that individual called them Keystone Cops, it pissed me off. And I thought, well, let's just prove him wrong. And I think I did. I believe I did. But I interviewed individuals in law enforcement, DAs, judges. I mean, everybody. I talked to everybody. There was not just one type of person. I didn't just talk to criminals and victims and, family and
Yeah.
friends. I wanted the story. So
You wanted
um
all angles covered.
did. Yeah. And I wanted to tell a side of the story that hadn't been told before. And you can't do that unless you talk to people.
Exactly. Because if it doesn't come straight, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to say it. If it doesn't come straight from the horse's mouth. Yeah.
That's right.
Sometimes I don't think before I speak.
Oh my God.
And honestly, when you were talking about Bob, stealing cattle at 18, I'm like, I got busted stealing a chocolate bar. How does one steal a cow?
I wanted to know why he was stealing a cow. I was like, what was wrong with you? He said they're worth a lot of money. And I'm like, well, I guess so. Hamburgers are pretty expensive. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that's my exact thought. I'm like, well, I've seen the price of like a flank steak lately. Yeah.
a candy bar. I could get the candy bar. Man, that I'd be yeah. I mean, I know I shouldn't, but man, I'd be all over that. But a cow? What do you
With my luck, I'd bring the cow home and be like, I don't know what to do with it from here.
Yeah, exactly.
But its name is Norman because I watched City Slickers. I forgot about Norm.
Cows after my husband.
It's not my fault. Norm is named after Norman from the City Slickers. That's how my story goes in my head.
Goodness. So yes, we'll publish on Skype. Oh my goodness. We publish on Spotify. We share on social media. So we will include links to your website and links to your book so that all the masses can read it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I put on my website, I put under Meagle with Pepper, I also put links to my interviews. So I'll put our interview on there too. Yeah.
Yay.
On my socials. So yeah. And hopefully your listeners will check out my website, and it's pepperanauthor.com, but sign up for my newsletter and see what I'm working on next. Yeah.
Definitely.
I was going to tell you, if you read those articles, just, keep an open mind that there's a lot more to that story. There's,
She's going to compare and contrast. She's going to be like, article's done. Now I'm ready.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll have a notebook.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because I used police reports, sheriff's reports. I did it all. Yeah.
Perfect.
I put it in
Dana's
there.
already thrilled for it. She's like, yes, my precious.
Yeah, court transcripts, everything. So it's yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, we thank you very much for joining us. And if you ever decide to do a part 2, or even when your next book is ready, let us know, and we'd love to have you back on.
Well,
Hell yeah.
thank you, thank you both so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
I'm
You're
glad to hear
welcome.
that.
And thank you for coming.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye bye.